Denver Broncos rookie quarterback Bo Nix takes home the NFL's Offensive Player of the Month. From the rookie standpoint for the month of October, could a jam-packed November help him make his case? Once again, we'll highlight how he earned it and much more here in today's episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantly orange.com. Broncos Country, thanks for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day every single day. And thank you so much for being an everydayer. You make the show exactly what it is. We appreciate you so much. And what you can expect here on this jam-packed episode of the show. Got some good news, Broncos Country. Rookie quarterback Bo Nix takes home the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Month. We'll kick off with that, but we'll wrap up today's show by talking about how Alex Palczewski could be forced to be called upon this week if Mike McGlinchey misses Sunday's game. But more importantly, we'll highlight matchups that we feel like will define the outcome of Sunday's tough AFC conference showdown between the Broncos and the Ravens. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Sayre, let's kick things off. I like this little run you're going on social media because you keep receipts. Our friend Larry keeps receipts. And the number one thing is that I remember the theme going into October. You heard someone say it on the national level that Bo Nix cosplays in the pocket. Well, he cosplayed his way into an NFL Rookie of the Month for October.
I absolutely love it, Cody. And it was right on the heels. This news came in right after Jayden Daniels was named the Rookie of the Week by, I think the fans vote for the Pepsi Rookie of the Week nowadays, which is all right. And so congrats to Jayden Daniels for that. I know the Hail Mary was a lot of fun, but I was really frustrated by that, which is so dumb because it really doesn't matter. It's just like the Pro Bowl, right? It's like, well, who really cares at the end of the day? But man, the NFL needed to step in some way, and they did in a big way, obviously, with Bo Nix winning Offensive Rookie of the Month for October, which is really cool considering, man, I thought this guy was too old to be an NFL franchise quarterback, Cody. I thought that he had too much of a noodle arm out there to be able to make enough throws to ever be named Rookie of the Week. It's kind of or Rookie of the Month, excuse me. Don't forget that aspect of it. It was for the entire month, so a consistent, 4 games worth sample size there. And for Bo Nix to do what he did, in spite of what people are saying about him, like you mentioned, the dude over at ESPN who's saying that he looks like he's cosplaying as a pocket quarterback out there, and then to absolutely shred the Carolina Panthers in the pocket, which, it doesn't really matter because remember the Carolina Panthers, they're the worst team in the NFL, and you should go out there and absolutely shred them unless you're being compared to Tim Tebow in the negative ways, right? Because as a quarterback, Bo Nix is not really much of a thrower of the football, but he can at least run the ball. There's always asterisks to stuff for people, Cody. There's always goalposts being moved. And I feel like I have to go out there and champion defending Bo Nix because
I love it.
There's so many, there's certain things that I want to call them that I will not because, it's inappropriate to say on the show, but it's so frustrating because, like, look, the guy can't win. His pre-draft assessments were he's never going to be this. He's never going to be able to do that. He's not going to translate in this way. It's going to be too slow for him to do this. He doesn't have upside. He doesn't have this, doesn't have that. Now he's doing it, and it's not against the right opponents, right, for people. So it's just like, who cares, man? We know Bo Nix is improving. He's balling out. He's showing signs of being a franchise quarterback. And Broncos Country is getting to see their team be in the playoff mix here as we enter the month of November.
I love seeing Broncos Country go after some of these national analysts. And look, you can tell. I think it's very easy. You can tell who watches tape, who doesn't, who understands the game. Like some people can watch tape but not know what they're looking at, right? And you get a lot of these national outlets that are churning out stuff for the content mill for all 32 teams. And of course, you're going to see things. A lot of it is rage bait. It's just to get engagement. But, the thing is, like when you watch Bo Nix on tape and you've seen, especially in the month of October, man, from the time he first set his foot on the field in the regular season, right, week 1 against Seattle, to now he's an entirely different quarterback. He's an entirely much more confident quarterback. I mean, we're talking about for Bo, this is what earned him honors for the month of October. I mean, Sayre, he led all rookies in these categories, 9 total touchdowns, 7 of those coming through the air, including 2-3 touchdown performance types of games. You had one against the Raiders. Then you had a 4 touchdown performance type of game against the Carolina Panthers, 3 passing, 1 rushing. Completion percentage, 66.7%. He had 82 completions in the month of October at 66.7%. That's pretty impressive. 870 passing yards. He led all rookies, including Jaden Daniels, including Caleb Williams, in those categories specifically for October. The Broncos also 3-1, and obviously taking care of business. You want to be able to do just that. The one thing I'll also say here about Bo is he's made adjustments on a week-to-week basis. The things that we have seen, like, okay, hey, Bo has to improve on this. We see him go out and improve it, right? The Saints game is, okay, hey, footwork, clean pocket, things like that. You want to see him improve there. Well, against the Carolina Panthers, and look, this is the number one thing I'm going to smash the hammer on right now. It doesn't matter who you play. It's about how you play. Because if Bo would have gone out there and struggled against the Carolina Panthers, you would have already seen the obituary written by these national outlets. But because he goes out there and dominates like he should have, it's, well, he just played the Panthers to the point. You're talking about physically moving the goalpost here. And this is why we can't have intellectual football conversations on social media hardly ever, because it contributes to the brain rot of discussion and wanting to. People can't objectively look at it. People can't even use their own eyes and watch the tape. They're like, well, this guy said this, so I believe it. Go watch the tape. I've been very pleased, Sayre, with what Bo has done to make strides in his game. And you want to continue to see him doing it, right? Because remember, after week 2, everyone was already saying, okay, hey, the Broncos made a mistake. And it's like, hey, no, this is why you let your rookie quarterback play and figure it out as he goes. And I also can't help but wonder if Denver had some of the playmakers that guys like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels had. I really wonder how his production would look, especially here in Denver. Just something I was going to throw out there too. But the icing on top, Sayre, he's the first Broncos rookie since Clinton Portis to win this award. Clinton Portis won it back all the way in 2002. I was 8 years old at that point. So that's a long time, man. So this is, awesome to see for Bo. He's worked his tail off, and obviously his teammates, I mean, they rally behind him. I talked to players in the locker room. They love Bo.
Yeah, and rightfully so, right? Because he's a great leader out there. We see him leading by example, and I'm sure Bo has done his part to block out the noise. I love that you brought up the Clinton Portis thing, Cody, because Clinton was one of the reasons I fell in love with the Broncos as, well, I was a teenager at that point, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I really
look at us. We're old now.
Look at us. I was asking on Twitter, speaking of my run on Twitter, like I got to be approaching UNC status these days. So
absolutely,
I'm ready for it. I'm embracing it. And I think that's kind of what comes before gray hair. But, I was told, Cody, that I shouldn't be watching Tim Jenkins breakdowns because, well, he has too much positive to say about Bo Nix. And, don't watch or don't listen to Chase Daniel because he's too much of a Sean Payton fanboy after playing in his offense for a few years. And it's kind of interesting, like when these guys are pulling out the little nuggets of positive from what Bo Nix is doing and then saying, hey, here's where he can improve. Once we start seeing Bo do it, it's funny how a lot of these same people shut themselves up online because they're just waiting. And that's the funny thing. It's like Broncos Country. Don't be surprised if Bo does have a bad game against the Baltimore Ravens. Don't be surprised to see these people come out in droves and say, see, I told you, get against a good opponent, he's going to crumble, as if nothing up to this point has mattered. So it's just funny how these things work. And I'm here for the ride. I'm a self-proclaimed Bo lever. I know there's a lot of members of Broncos Country who are as well, and he's making Bo levers out of a lot of fans out there. But this is just the latest evidence of I've seen it, diminish. Like what he's accomplishing on the field is being diminished by, well, we don't like how it's happening, right? We don't like the footwork here. Or we don't like that he got lucky on this play or that he ran instead of throwing it on this play. It's all a bunch of bull. Watch and trust your eyes with what you're seeing and listen to people who know ball out there, because there's a lot of people who know football. And I know that's even frowned upon to say, well, if you say no ball, you don't know what you're talking about, obviously. Just watch the people who know what they're talking about and listen to the people who are level-headed and even-keeled through this whole thing. It's been fun to watch, Cody, and I'm glad that we can have a little moment here of just kind of having Bo's back a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think it's necessary at times too. And I think the one thing that people don't account for is how his teammates feel about him. And you ask any of his teammates about him, you ask Cortland, he raves about Bo. Like, these guys are so close. It's fun to see that offense. If they can just continue to gel and stay healthy on the O line, I guarantee you there's gonna be some fun things ahead here for Broncos country. I like what we've seen from Bo Nix and Broncos country. We want to know how you feel about the Broncos rookie quarterback after he wins Rookie of the Month for the month of October. Make sure you let us know wherever you're listening to Locked On Broncos. But one thing we are going to dive into here, if the Broncos are going to win on Sunday on the road against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, shutting those two guys down is going to be a big key. How can they do that? We break that down and some other matchups that will define the outcome on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's Locked On Broncos is brought to you by our friends over there at the Game Time app. And look, Game Time, they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. If you want to go to Baltimore, if you're in the DMV area, you're going to go out there and you want to see the Broncos take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, Game Time is the best place to get the best deals on tickets and on seats inside of the Game Time app, because Game Time Picks, they filter out the fluff to show you the only incredible deals that you'll get on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Not only do I like Game Time Picks, but I love their all-in pricing feature, because sometimes when you go to checkout, you're hit with surprise fees. Well, you toggle all-in pricing and it'll show you your total up front, so you're not hit with any surprise fees when you go to checkout. You pay for exactly what you see inside the app. And on top of that, you get great seat views. You get to see exactly what the vantage point of the game is going to be like from your seat inside of the app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at 5 Hour Energy. And our friends there, they know about being a passionate football fan. They know it's not just a hobby, it's a way of life. And it takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, especially if you're going to the game this Sunday, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, or even Hail Mary at the end. Washington Commanders fans are certainly feeling that, which is why they've created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made for super fans just like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and who are the last to leave. We see you. 5 Hour Energy wants to give you a little bit of a boost this week, especially if the Broncos find a way to go on the road and beat the Baltimore Ravens. 5 Hour Energy is going to get you through the entire day. I know for me, I'm going to be doing it so we can get through the game, write the articles, and do a post-game podcast here, Locked On Broncos. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or you're ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand a Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy, available on 5hourenergy.com, shipped nationwide.
If the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Month is going to get an upset win on Sunday, he's going to need his defense to do their job against the AFC Offensive Player of the Month, Lamar Jackson, and the star-studded cast. Cody and I are going to talk about some of these key matchups and just essential items on the to-do list for the Denver Broncos if they're going to go in and, I guess, overcome the biggest spread of the week, which is kind of crazy to think about, Broncos country. But we want to say thank you to every single one of you that makes Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. Whether or not the Broncos are 9.5-point underdogs or whether or not they're favorites, you know that's your boys Cody and Sayre. We got you every single day, including the occasional bonus episode, especially as we get close to the trade deadline here. Cody and I will have our mics hot and ready in case the Broncos end up doing something there. But let's talk about this Ravens game. Obviously, the pressing issue for the Denver Broncos right now, even though they have the same record as the Baltimore Ravens, you're going up against a team that's considered kind of a juggernaut offensively, especially. Lamar Jackson is the reigning AFC Offensive Player of the Month for October, and for good reason. The guy has been absolutely dominant out there. It's taken, the teams that have beaten the Ravens, it's taken them all 4 quarters and, every inch of the field to be able to do it, quite frankly. How are the Broncos going to slow down Lamar and his new king, I guess, in the backfield there, Derrick Henry, who have just been running all over people this season?
I mean, we've talked about this as well, kind of in the buildup to this game, is that, Lamar Jackson, when you're facing him in general, it's always tough because of his athleticism, his ability to get outside the pocket, not only hurt you with his legs in the run game, but also hurt you with his legs to extend things in the passing game there. Now you add in a little bit of a sprinkle of Derrick Henry, who, by the way, is the NFL's leading rusher. He also leads the NFL in total touchdowns right now from a skill player standpoint with 11 on the year. It's like all of a sudden it's like, man, pick your poison. Like, it makes the challenge even more difficult. And I think when you talk to Broncos players, I asked a couple of defenders, I'm like, they're like, hey, Lamar's tough as is, but now you add in Derrick Henry. It's like, we really have to be on our P's and Q's this week to limit the explosives. I think the biggest thing here, Sayre, is the early down situation here for the Broncos defensively, right? First and 10, let's just say Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry, let's say they run the ball and they get 6 yards on first and 10. Well, now it's 2nd and 4. That's a very favorable situation if you have a guy like Lamar. It's also a very, very favorable situation if you have a guy like Derrick Henry. But then you factor in the passing game where, okay, you sell out against the run. They try to hit you with some quick RPO stuff or some play action. They got speedy guys like Zay Flowers. They got Rashad Bateman. I know they added Deontay Johnson. Not sure what his role will actually be this week or if he plays much at all. And then you get 2 sizable tight ends, Isaiah Likely, who's a yard after the catch type of threat, Mark Andrews, who's a possession receiver at this point. And it's like, man, like, this is tough on paper. I think the biggest key this week, Sayre, early down success. If you can hold the Ravens to a 2nd and 9, or, you stuff them and at 2nd and 10, or you send them backwards on first down, that is crucial, right? First and second down are going to be I'd say the defining factors here for Denver's defense against the Ravens. The Ravens last week, I think they were 2 of 10 on third down, but they were explosive. They almost had 400 yards of offense, all because of what they were able to do on first and second down. That's the key to victory this week for Denver's defense.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past, the matchups the Broncos have had with Lamar Jackson, where not only does your first guy have to get there, but the second guy can't miss either. Because when your initial pass rush gets there, all right, that's great. Typically, Lamar Jackson is going to make those guys miss. So what about the second guy? If that guy misses, then you get into a position where your defensive backs, they just can't hold coverage for that long against guys who excel at creating separation. I mean, like you mentioned, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, even as a kind of, I bet Sean Payton would call him a joker for that offense because of just how big of a mismatch he is in the passing game. So if you can get the Ravens into obvious passing situations that aren't play action, that's when you need your secondary pass rush to get home. And that's where I think the Broncos can make some hay in this game. You've got to be able to create turnovers if you can get to Lamar Jackson, who I know John Harbaugh said that he was getting a kind of a standard off day. Well, he didn't technically say that. He said he's got the day off. He didn't specify why. We found out on the injury report, Cody, on Wednesday that Lamar was dealing with some, I believe it was back and, groin potentially or something like that.
Back
So
and knee, kind of like me.
back
Every
and
day I
knee.
wake up, my back and my knee
Yeah.
are killing me, man. I tell you.
Sheesh. And Lamar is not even at UNC status yet. So we know that the back and the knee, that's he doesn't really have to worry about those at the age of whatever he is, 27 or whatever. But look, Lamar dealing with any sort of injury, the back and the knee is interesting in terms of adding a wrinkle to this game, because yes, he can win from the pocket, but if you can force him to have to kind of try to get into escape mode, those types of injuries are what can help your defense get home on that secondary pass rush.
Yeah, it's so crucial there. And look, I think there's some other important elements in this matchup that really define the outcome of it. I think we have to focus on here for a minute. The Broncos wide receivers, Sayre, I mean, you talk about Baltimore being one of the best defenses against the run, which is ironic, right? But they're giving up a lot of explosives in the passing game. Obviously, their cornerbacks are banged up a little bit. They still have Kyle Hamilton, who's an unbelievable dog. It should have ended the game against the Browns last week. He dropped an interception that would have sealed it, and then they wouldn't have lost to Cleveland there. But the thing is that you have to capitalize. Like, if this is the week, right? We've seen Denver take shots. We've seen Bo Nix take shots. If you're going to do that, this is the week that guys need to start coming down with the football, right? Making big plays. Can't just be Cortland Sutton. I think Devon Bailey will probably have a little bit of a larger role in this week's game. I think we're going to continue to see Troy Franklin be used. Like, he's creating separation at a very great rate, which is fun to see. Just finish. Like, he's not down on confidence. I talked to him in the locker room this week, and he says, I just got to keep grinding. The coaching staff believes in him. And, I know it's hard to ask fans to be patient, but I think when it clicks for Troy, I think it will. fans are going to be very excited about what he can do. Like it's there. It's there for the taking. And obviously you've seen that as well with his ability to get behind guys. Like some guys can't keep up. I think people don't understand how fast he truly is, especially for his size. So they have to break that one off as well. We'll also highlight a little bit about some other matchups that will help define this outcome on Sunday if Denver's going to find a win. Plus injuries impacting Denver on the offensive line once again. If Mike McGlinchey is unable to go, what's the Broncos' plan at right tackle? We'll tell you what that is here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. And as you all know at FanDuel, they are America's #1 sportsbook, and the NFL season is rolling on here in Week 9. We all know the Denver Broncos are going to travel on the road to take on the Baltimore Ravens, but our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook have the Ravens at 9.5 home favorites in that game. So the Broncos, 9.5-point road underdogs in that matchup. You look at this game specifically, the over-under on this is 46.5. If you think it's going to hit the over, you can go into FanDuel and place a bet here today. But FanDuel wants to get you in on all the action because they give you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Once again, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win over there at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Broncos are going to have to capitalize on a couple of other matchups if they're going to find a way to win in Sunday's game against the Baltimore Ravens. Not only do you have an AFC showdown, but you also have the time change this weekend. But one thing never changes, and that's going to be our coverage over here, Locked On Broncos. Thanks to all the everydayers and first listeners for making the show exactly what it is. We appreciate you so much for all your support, all your interaction. Make sure you engage with other members of Broncos Country as well as we continue to build the community here. Sayre, we were talking about really in the last segment there, talking about some of the matchups. We highlighted how crucial Denver's defense against Lamar and Derrick Henry is going to be. We touched on how wide receivers are going to have to make a big play. I want to throw a little bit of a sprinkle in there too. We all know Baltimore's run defense is very good, right? You got guys like Odafe Owe. You have what's his name? Yannick Ngakoue. You've got Patrick Queen at the line. No, is it Patrick Queen or Roquan? It's Roquan.
Roquan, yeah.
My God. You've got Roquan Smith at inside linebacker. Kyle Hampton comes up and plays the run terrifically well, and you got a secondary that can tackle. So teams are having a hard time running the ball against the Baltimore Ravens. But all you need, Sayre, is one big break. Could that come from Javonte, Jaleel, or Audric Estime? I feel like you have to find a way to break a big one here this week. And we've seen Javonte's done it before against the Ravens.
Yeah, he has, and he's dragged a number of their defenders with him, including, I believe, Marlon Humphrey, who might be on track to play in this game. So it could be scary hours there for Marlon Humphrey, or maybe he'll overcompensate and make a huge play against Javonte. We don't know. We'll wait and find out. But I'm excited to find out if any of these runners can do that, Cody, because it feels like it's been a while since the Broncos really busted off a huge run. I know they've had some chunk runs, which has been nice to see. The running game has gotten going over the last 5-6 weeks, 6 straight games with over 100 rushing yards for the Denver Broncos, including 225 against New Orleans. That Baltimore defensive front is a little banged up right now. As I was just chatting with Kevin Ostreicher on yesterday's crossover show, the defensive front for Baltimore pretty banged up this week, and potentially on a short week with Cincinnati looming after this.
Yeah.
We could see a number of guys rested on Sunday in preparation for that game in particular, as the Ravens, obviously, I mean, they would ideally want to win both, but man, your divisional matchups are so huge. And when you have a short week against two teams that can do a lot of different things offensively right now is what we've been seeing. It should be interesting to see, Cody. Speaking of that Baltimore defensive front, who they go up against at right tackle for the Denver Broncos is going to be interesting to monitor, as we've seen Mike McGlinchey back for the last couple of games after suffering a knee injury early in the season. He went on IR, came back for that Saints game. He's been playing really well these last couple of games for the Broncos, and unfortunately, maybe just the wear and tear on the knee that could end up causing him to miss this game. Tell us what you've seen out there at practice, what your kind of vibe is as we approach kind of the end of the week, and what the plan for McGlinchey and the replacement, if he can't go, would be.
Yeah, and look, I don't know if it's wear and tear, Sarah, but I think he got rolled up on again in this past game. I don't know if it was on Bo's QB sneak, which, by the way, I love the outcome of the play. I don't like the play because Bo's jumping, he's leaving his feet. There's a pile underneath him. That's where you can get your ankle and your knee twisted. I don't like that play. I love the outcome, just don't like the play. Protect Bo Nix there. But he got rolled up on one play on the offensive side, and he was obviously limping after the game. Wednesday when the Broncos had practice for the first time this week, it was indoors because of inclement weather. And luckily, and I think in Baltimore, it's going to be 60 and partly cloudy, which is tremendous for the start of November. Unbelievable. But the one thing I will say is like McGlinchey was doing team stretch on Wednesday, and then he left and did not practice. So he was probably going to get treatment. I think at this point, right, it's worth monitoring. He's questionable, I think, right now for Sunday's game. And I think the bigger question will be, okay, if he's not 100%, is it a little bit more of a liability, especially against the Ravens, to put him out there right now? Because the good news is, fortunately this week, is that the Broncos have Alex Palczewski back. He was a full participant on Wednesday. He's made great progress coming off of the high ankle sprain that bothered him when he was starting at right tackle. When he filled in for McGlinchey, did a pretty solid job. He may be forced to go this week. Still don't think we're going to see PJ Locke. Was on the side field on Wednesday initially for practice, did not participate there. He's got the thumb injury and obviously a cast on that. We don't know what the timeline is going to be right there. But, man, very, very interesting. And if PJ's unable to go, it'll be Devin Key again at safety.
And the Broncos, obviously, we saw the return of Delarian Turner-Yell to practice as well, right? So they opened up his window. He could end up making his debut, although, Cody, I feel like he showed last year he's kind of that special teams guy, somebody who's going to contribute in that phase. So interesting with all that considered right there. I have just a little bit of a crackpot, tinfoil hat theory to kind of throw at you here with you reporting Drew Sanders returning to the side field of practice.
Yeah.
How about the idea of the Broncos trading away Baron Browning and plugging Sanders in to that spot there? As we approach the trade deadline, I put together an article just of names of players who could be traded. Baron Browning on there, of course, as teams seek pass rush help around the league. Maybe him not being the most likely to be re-signed by the Denver Broncos. You said Drew Sanders, it was out there on the side field. Do you think there's a chance that they fully plug him in at the edge position here if he's able to come back this season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that he'll probably play edge regardless. I think from where his body type is at, I don't think he's going to play inside linebacker, especially with Quan Alexander or Sean Payton maybe hinted that there's probably a possibility he'll be on the active roster at some point here in the near future. For Drew, though, I obviously put that out there. He's been on the side field for majority of the season, though, is the one thing that I'd say. So it's like, to me, it's like it's great that he's on the side field because usually you're on the side field, you're being noticed, right? You're out there doing stuff where people can see you. Okay, that's good, but the thing is we still don't know. Like initially, I know some people said he could return late October. Well, here we are. We're in November. It really depends on where Denver's at. They also have Andrew Farmer on the practice squad as well as an outside linebacker. So I think for Drew, they would love to see him back, but I think it's about easing him in the right way. Like Delarian Turner-Yell has been ready for a little bit of time now, but they've wanted to build up some acclimation, some conditioning for him, and obviously his first day of practice there. I do see a scenario like if anyone's going to call, like I think Baron Browning probably right now on the Broncos, we're looking at one player, is probably the one player that we have to keep our eye on in terms of other teams calling and trying to trade for him at this point. Of course, some teams are going to try to call and, inquire falsely about like, hey, is Patrick Surtain a second available? That's where it's like, new phone, who dis? I'm not picking that up right there. But I think Barron will be a guy that there will probably be some movement in terms of discussions and teams looking for a pass rusher. Barron could be one of those guys. I don't think Jonathan Cooper will be on the move, even though I know we talked about that a little bit earlier this week with the report that came out from Tom Pelissero, Ian Rappaport. Cooper's a guy I think that Denver wants to build with now. He's obviously won the starting job last year after they benched Randy Gregory and Frank Clark, and he's kept it. He's run away with that job there, and obviously Nick Bonito emerging there as the leading sack artist. He's the other starter. You got a young guy in Jonah Ellis you really, really like, and they really like Dondre Tillman as well. So it does seem like if you're looking at it from that standpoint, Denver may look to get capital. Barron could be the one guy out the door probably by the trade deadline next week, which, bummer. I love Barron. Great dude. Has always been great to me. just the business side of the NFL, as you all know it. So not sure Drew is ready to come back just yet, but I will keep Broncos Country posted on what I see. He's built like a brick. I can't say the word house. Like, he is jacked. And so I think edge is definitely where he's going to probably play.
Which will be fun to see on a full-time basis. We know the Broncos kind of moved him there last year and got to see him work in that in their packages where they had kind of a lot of the lighter guys out there. So going to be interesting to see just the physical transformation when he's able to get back out there on the field. But yeah, as we approach the trade deadline, Cody, I'm very interested to see what the Broncos do. More reports continue to come out from ESPN saying like, hey, the Broncos are kind of a team to watch in terms of they could go get players, or they could, trade away players, or, I mean, obviously they could do nothing. There's always the in between, but it feels like the Broncos are one of those teams not necessarily looking to sell at the trade deadline, but you have enough players that it makes logical sense to maybe trade away a couple of guys who aren't currently playing, where you have other players young players who could step into their roles and maybe give you options for the future.
Yeah, and I think that Sean Payton, I mean, Sean told us that he and George talk 3 to 4 times a day. Sean will come into his office. He'll go into George's office from time to time. They'll talk, but he's obviously not going to give us anything about what they talk about. So very, very interesting to see what happens. And one thing we all know, Broncos Country, you can bank on Sayre Bedinger, myself being here every single day, every step of the way, especially with the NFL trade deadline. You need breaking news podcasts when or if something happens. This is the place to be. Locked On Broncos. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all the everydayers and first listeners out there in Broncos Country. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NFL podcast. Sayre and myself will be back for Sunday's post-game report against the Baltimore Ravens. If there's anything breaking that happens before that, you can expect an episode here. Locked On Broncos, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.